I'm going to give you some advice. This is advice to anyone, any speaker who wants to increase their fees.
How'd you do that?
I see that success is not something you pursue. It is something you are.
All right, so we're going to talk about increasing your fees. This is just simple advice. When we were talking on the Speak Pro Academy accountability call, a mastermind call, someone asked about increasing prices and what he should charge and how to charge more. And a lot of people have this question. A lot of speakers, or just a lot of people in general, want to know, how do I charge more for what I'm offering, for my services? And I went from charging $200 to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 really fast. The horrible advice that I got in terms of this information was you start to charge more based on the demand. So once you get to a certain amount of gigs and you can only do a certain amount of gigs, then you increase your price a little bit more. And then once you're in demand more, you increase your price a little bit more. And that's the horrible advice that I got. And the reason why this is wrong is because when you're charging $500, that is a completely different market than when you're charging $15,000 or $20,000. Completely different. And so you have to approach things differently. And the first thing that you want to do if you want to increase your rates is you got to think, can they even afford it? So whatever market you're in, and this is why I say that someone who's paying $500 is completely different than someone who's paying $15,000 or $20,000, because the people who are paying $500, they probably can't even afford $15,000, even if they wanted to pay. Even if their idol came in, if let's say they loved music and Michael Jackson said, hey, you only got to pay me $15,000, that's it. They would still say like, damn, we can't bring you in. I mean, it's just too much. And so you got to say like, can they really afford it? And if you're doing an event for like an elementary school or high school and you're trying to charge 20 grand, you won't be able to make that much consistently just because they just cannot afford it. So you got to ask yourself, can they afford it from the get-go? And then you got to think, okay, the only real way you're going to increase your fees is really just by asking for it. I notice a lot of people just do not ask for it. They're like, how do I increase my fees? I don't know how to increase my fees. I'm like, well, did you ask? And they're like, well, no, that's a good idea. I'm like, no. And so you got to think, you got to just ask for it. And the biggest hurdle that people have is just asking for more. And what I told the guy on the Speak Pro Academy, he was charging $1,500, and he said, yeah, I'm going to say $1,500. I said, dude, just say $3,000. Like, most people are thinking way too small. And the reason is because they do not know that they can ask for more. They do not know that they are essentially thinking way too small, and that the person who was going to hire them, they were willing to pay you $5,000, but you only asked for $1,500. And because you only asked for $1,500, they said, oh yeah, sure, here's your $1,500. And so most people just do not ask for it, for one. And the higher your fee, the more it's about who you are rather than what your presentation is. This is why people bring in celebrity speakers, and celebrity speakers rarely, if ever, have a great presentation. Like, I've rarely seen a celebrity speaker with a great presentation. Someone who's charging like 60, 70 grand, I've rarely seen someone with a great presentation charging that much. And the reason is because it's not about their presentation, it's about who they are. It's about the name. And the name brings people into the event, and it adds to the prestige of the event. So when they say like, hey, we got freaking the president to come to our event, well, that adds to the prestige of the event. And so it's not about the presentation. And so at a certain point, you got to realize that. And the way you get to that is you just doing publicity and all that stuff. But you got to think, it's not about you being a real celebrity. You got to think along the lines of getting them to bring you in, not just a speaker, not just an entertainer, not just a band or whatever, to bring you in. If they want you, then you can charge way more than what you think. And I've had this happen several times where it's clear that they want me. They don't want another person. And so by doing this, when they're like, no, we want to bring you in, and you say, here's how much I charge, they're not going to negotiate. They're just going to say, okay, bam, let's go, let's get it. And that's the state of mind that you need to get people in. And the way you get people in that state of mind is to really just be really good, for one. But you got to think in terms of people are, if they're looking for you specifically, rather than just another guy, another speaker, another entertainer, another whatever, if they want you, then you can charge a whole lot more. And you always got to think in terms of, to charge $10,000, you got to look like you're worth it. To charge $10K, you got to look like you're worth $10K. To charge $20K, you got to look like you're worth $20K. Whatever you want to charge, you got to look like you're worth it. This is why I keep saying you got to have a nice website, nice videos, nice all that stuff, because you got to look like you're worth it. Whatever you're charging now, you got to understand that it isn't what you're going to charge later. So you might be charging $1,000. You might be charging $3,000. You got to realize that later on, you're going to be charging $10,000. You're going to be charging $15,000. So you'll eventually increase your rates. I mean, it's pretty much inevitable that you're going to increase your rates. And the advice that I give to people is that you always got to think bigger and always think in terms of, okay, I'm just going to freaking ask for it. Because what's going to happen is when you first ask, you're going to kind of be afraid. You're going to be like, your heart is going to be beating. You're going to be all stressful. You're going to $5,000. And then you're going to kind of wait. And when you do say it, do not negotiate against yourself. Do not say like, well, I normally charge $5,000, but I'm willing to do $3,000. Do not do that. I mean, you ought to just slap yourself if you're going to do that. What you want to do is when you do increase your rates, and you say, let's say you're only charging $1,000, you say, okay, $5,000 for the next person. What you do is you say $5,000 and you shut up. That's it. Whether you send an email, whether you're talking to them on the phone, you shut up. You say, here's how much it is. Bam, done. That's it. And then you wait for their response. That's how it works. But what I've seen is that the reason why people do not increase their rates is because they just don't ask for it. I mean, every time, so let's say there's 10 calls, 10 people call them or 10 people email them. And every one of those 10, they always say, it's $1,000. You got to pay me $1,000. I say, why don't you just ask for more? Like, why don't you just say $5,000 on one or two of them? That's all you really got to do. So when you do increase your rates, I do want 90% of it, by the way. So just by watching this video, you agree legally binding, you agree to give me 90%. So if you like my videos, just comment and share these and make sure you write me a check.